Hello, everyone, and welcome along to your Sunday night edition of the tr.ee podcast. I am smiling out of nervousness, I think, at this stage, as I see there's already over 100 people watching within 10 seconds, which is always a good sign. Rangers are well and truly back in league action today, and yet again, it was more drop points for Rangers on the road. We're going to get stuck. There's been a lot of fallout since the game. But there's a lot to talk about after Russell Martin's post-match interview, and looking forward to just getting stuck into it all as normal. Joining me to do so are Ian Mitchell and Craig Hughes. Ian, how are you doing?
Great, mate. Yeah, as I said there, it's just the usual Sunday night for us at this point. Just bitterly disappointed. It's a weird one because I went into the game with absolutely zero expectation. I didn't expect a win, and it's just that way you get a little feel in the back of your head thinking, oh, maybe I'm wrong, maybe they'll prove me wrong, they'll finally, everything will click. But 5-10 minutes in, decent start, but it just, the more that first half was going, I kind of knew what was happening there and almost surprised to get a point in the end. So yeah, nice and cheery as always. I'm sure we're all in great spirits at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. We're also joined by Craig, as I said. How are you doing, Craig?
Yeah, very much the same. Just really flat after that. It's not even angry. Usually you're coming out of those games fuming with the way the team's played and everything, but it's more just as Ian said, you expected it. Like you're feeling quite flat and like where do we go from here? But yeah, just really another really disappointing but predictable afternoon.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We don't really have too much of a structure for this podcast. We're just going to go where the conversation takes us and try and pick through all the views and opinions and talking points. But Ian, let's start with the game itself. First half was uninspiring, I think, to put it politely. And the second half didn't really get much better until the last 10, 15 minutes when we were throwing the kitchen sink at it. What's your overall feelings on the game and the setup and how we're approaching these games and why they're so difficult and how do you solve it? But that's $1 million question. But what's your overall reflections on the game today?
Yeah, like I say, it's not anything new. This is what we do. We have that little flurry at the end. We think, they're going to get a winner, but that would be an absolute robbery if we'd done that. And that's 3 games in a row now where we're probably lucky to get a point in each of those. It's been so poor. I just don't understand what we're trying to do. And I say this from a place where I've been quite vocal on thinking Russell Martin was a decent appointment. I think it made sense. I think the style that he should be bringing is what we've been crying out for years, and try to dominate play, the high press, all these kind of buzzwords that are now looking really stupid. But I just don't see what we're trying to do. We're not making chances. We're so easy to play against, so easy to score against, because yet again today, like Dundee, like Motherwell, we could have been a couple, even 3 goals down at half time just from absolute basic actions. It's individual mistakes. It's collectively we're not a great unit. And then going forward, if you think, okay, at least if you're poor defensively, make up for it going forward. Be threatening, be all action, give me stuff to go for. There's nothing. Like St Mirren goalie again hasn't had too much to do until the very end. Obviously, like we mentioned, the defence has been largely untroubled. And I did see the lineup, and I thought, okay, he knows Danilo's not going to work. Igaman's probably not ready to start, as he said a few days before. So I thought, okay, trying something new. Let's see if this maybe different option up front changes anything. But it's still the same slow, tepid, boring football. It's just very what we've come to expect at this point. You're not coming to the game days and kick off and going, I can't wait to watch Rangers. Let's see what we do. It's, oh God, here we go again. And that's without a ball being kicked. And, it's just a really sad state of affairs. And as a team, we just get bullied in every corner of the park. Like, we have no leadership, no structure. There's so many. I could vent for 20 minutes here about what we don't do and don't have, but I'll let you guys chip in as well. But it's just so, it makes you want to sigh watching it. It's really not what I want to see from my team at all at the moment.
Yeah, Craig, Russell Martin reminded us during the week that it's only 7.5 weeks. It's now 8 weeks into his reign. Hugo Bear says no aggression, no urgency, no speed, no attacking. It just feels like we're not doing anything. It feels like we're just 11 men standing on the football pitch, trying to keep the ball for as long as they can, but failing miserably even at that. And then all the other team needs to do is play two, as in the case today, two straight passes down the middle of the park, and they're going goal, and they find the back of the net. It's depressing that we're not. I can't really think of any goals. We say too many goals, but any goals where the other team has had to work for it yet so far this season, and that's probably one of the most frustrating things. Is we're just gifting goals, and then we don't have the wherewithal to then break a team down or to find the back of the net ourselves until it's almost too late to then to get anything from a game or to get a win from the game, and we're leaving ourselves in these positions where that's 3-1-1 draws in a row, and where do you go from there? I did read something today which I checked and I think is right actually, but if Russell Martin wins against Celtic next week, big if in there, but if Russell Martin wins against Celtic next week, then he has a better start to managerial life at Rangers than Steven Gerrard. So that's one that will surprise quite a few people, I imagine. But Craig, overall in the game today, Hugo Bear saying no aggression, no urgency, no speed, no attacking. Where's your head with it all?
Yeah, I think it's the same old story, to be honest with you, and this predates even Russell Martin coming in. For years, we've been slow starters in games. It's like we wait. I think Kieran said in our chat, we're waiting for St Mirren to score before we react in any way. And it's the same every single game. We start so slow. I don't know if it's just we expect someone to do something or we expect it all to come together, but we start incredibly slow. We just wait for something bad to happen, and ultimately it does. Now, that goal, I feel like I've seen that goal a million times now. A long ball right through our defence. Our defence is absolutely flat and it becomes a foot race. And it's a foot race because we're never going to win because we're not mobile enough. We're not, on our toes. We're so flat. I've just seen it. I just feel like anything, all a team needs against us is be well organised, work hard, and have a guy up front who is a bit of a handful and can move. And even in some cases, no really moves. Like Connor Salmon gave us some problems a couple of weeks ago. So it's so basic. And you're right. It could have been. I mean, it could have been a couple of goals by half time. Every time St Mirren went forward, we looked so nervous. Set pieces were atrocious again. Such a high line. There was one point when Gogic was up against Lyle Cameron at one bit. So we are so lucky we didn't concede more goals. You touched on it. We're so lucky that we've come out of this with even 3 points in over the 3 games rather than a couple of defeats in there. And it's just not good enough for. If you knew nothing about Scottish football, you would look at the first 3 league games and you'd probably say Motherwell, Dundee, St Mirren. They're probably on par with Rangers, a similar level team, if not better, which is disgraceful. As I said, I could understood if it maybe wasn't coming together for us. There was still a few mistakes. We're still working things out. We were, our peppering other teams' goal, and it just wasn't happening for us. But it's just awful, and it's no good enough. And you can't accept that. Oh, this team's growing, this team's learning. I'm sorry, but that doesn't wash in these games.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We've spoken a bit about the disaster that was the St Mirren goal that we conceded, but Ian. Manny Fernandez, I think if you saw the analysis on Sky Sports at half time, he's looking the other way. He's expecting it's a young guy. He's expecting him to run in the other direction, and he's just left him completely. No idea where he is. But yet again, John Souttar's left wanting as well from this. What's your view of? Obviously, Manny Fernandez is playing out of necessity, and there's a lot of discussion around. We should have a more experienced centre half already at this stage, and we shouldn't just be even if Giga is sent off, which can happen for centre halves and defenders in particular. It's a risk, and will happen a couple of times over the course of the season. But we're effectively we're just weakening ourselves massively by just not being prepared, and I think that's a real frustration. But John Souttar's supposed to be the mainstay, the experienced one, the leader in that back line, and for me, he's not even up to being a starter in our team.
No, I think we're all saying the exact same. He's a fine third, fourth choice, absolutely fine for that role, but he shouldn't be a main centre-back, and we've got a lot of pressure on him to be leading guys that are here on loan, guys that are here that are finding their feet at Rangers kind of thing, and I don't want to start like sort of a jump on Fernandes, but you sign a guy for $2.5 million, a guy who's 24. He's not like 17. He should be a capable deputy to these guys, and he's just not. And I think it was quite telling when we signed him. Obviously, all the comments from Peterborough fans were, "Why have you paid that much for him? How have we got this much for him?" kind of thing. That's a massive statement, kind of thing. And then he's obviously not featured until now, when he's had to. Again, it's not a great look. It's a tough game, a tough venue to come into, obviously, but he was poor. I think defensively we're just poor again. It's just what we're used to. I don't understand how we are so sort of linked with Connor Cody, and obviously Russell Martin mentioned at his press conference we wanted that experienced name, kind of done everything but say it was Connor Cody, and there hasn't been a backup. There hasn't been okay, if we don't get target 1, we go for target 2. And obviously there was a link with the Batiste boy, but that just doesn't make sense from like a profile way. You need someone in there who is a leader, who is sort of like battle scarred and knows their way about either the league or winning trophies, all these things, which it's not easy to come by, but there's got to be a second, third, fourth option there when your first pick doesn't come through, because like you say, Suter is not that leadership type. He's the guy that maybe will throw his body on the line, probably have a good game on Wednesday night because that game suits him so well, but he's not going to like rally the team around him. He's not going to shout at people. He's not going to be aggressive in certain moments. And there's moments today he's getting pushed off the ball by a teenager. Like, that's, look at the size of you. Like, that just shouldn't be happening. It's so obvious. It wouldn't happen at junior level, let alone, top division in Scotland here. So yeah, just yet another area of this squad that's not good enough, and we should have done more by this point. It was annoying me, to be honest, where excuse me, but Russell Martin's came out after it and said we're having to like learn on the job, and it's a lot of games thick and fast. Like, this schedule has been known for a while. Like, yes, we were talking about postponing this game, but it was our choice then to make the game happen. It was on the back of that red card, obviously. So this hasn't been a surprise. This game hasn't sprung on us. This list of fixtures hasn't been sprung on us, and yet we're so underprepared at left back, centre back, striker, midfield, still all over the place for me as well. There's so many question marks this squad, literally front to back, and none of it surprised me today. I can't reiterate that enough. I didn't expect to win. We didn't win, and we got bullied for almost 90 minutes of that game until it was properly, we need to do something now. And then we look all right the last 10, 15 minutes, exact same as Dundee, just repeating patterns yet again.
One of the biggest concerns for me, Craig, is the midfield at the moment. Defence is a concern, but there's obvious weaknesses there that we're hoping will be addressed. The midfield was supposed to be the one part of the team that, right, we've got the players there, so we should be pretty solid. If you look at Rothwell, Raskin, Diomande, Lyle Cameron, Tel Asgard, even some of the fringe players in there as well, I guess, that we've got there, you're thinking, right, we should be okay there. And I've not seen us control a game once. I've not seen us take charge. They look at 6s and 7s all the time. They look unsure of what they're supposed to be doing, or just incapable of doing what they're being asked to do. Rothwell's in the 6, but not doing great in there at the moment, but he's definitely not an 8. But we've seen him play in that position for Leeds and tear up trees, and you're like, looking like, what player have we got that's then left there? Nico Raskin is all over the place. Really, he's not doing anything. He's not contributing. Diomande's a shell of the player that we think we've seen. Never mind the player that we think he can be. What Lyle Cameron, I think, brings the effort and the energy, but he looked a bit lost today. Like, he just didn't seem to get his time on the ball. How do we make that midfield work? And is it just a case of actually we've got good players, but they just don't work together? They don't have that chemistry, or is it something different, do you think?
I think we do have good players. I think even last season we were, in the majority of Old Firm games, we were looking stronger in the midfield, which was always where we lost Old Firm games. And we've not really, we've kept that kind of Diomande, Raskin, we've kept them in there. So I expected us to just, be a lot even stronger this year in the midfield. Obviously expected Rothwell to come in and contribute well, but yeah, I think the personnel's there. I think the issues are that, 1, he's not found the right mix. 2, his system's probably not suiting those players. But probably the third one is we don't know what's going on with Raskin, Diomande. are they want to be there? Are they looking for a move? There's so much uncertainty around there. The Rothwell, I agree with the criticism. I thought, the first couple of games, I thought he looked really, he looked good on the ball. Like, I thought there's a player in there. He just needs to get up to speed. But he looks miles off it. He's not contributed anything positive in my way. Not really had any stamp in the game, whether it be physicality, experience, winning tackles, picking the right pass. And Raskin, you're right. Sometimes he's better when he's, gets to just go and win tackles, and get about the pitch. It seems to be later on in games, Raskin sort of comes into it when the shackles come off a little bit and he just does his own thing. Like the Bruges game, I thought second half he was actually decent. First half he was really poor. We was trying to play in Russell Martin's structure. Diomande, I totally agree. He's been miles off it. He's either he doesn't like the way Russell Martin plays, or his head's elsewhere. But yeah, it's so frustrating because we have got the personnel in there. Rothwell there's definitely a player in there, but we're not finding the right mix in there. And also, I just don't know. You're right. The chemistry's probably the right word. It's just not there now.
Yeah, Ian, there's quite a few players that have came in. I guess Ant-Man, Gassama's maybe the exception. I don't know if it's Gassama or Gassama. I want to keep saying Gassama. Gassama just feels weird. But if you look at Ant-Man, if you look at Max Aarons, if you look at Rothwell, they start well the first couple of games they're here, and then they just regress.
Yep.
And then they struggle to make any impact. Why do you think that is?
I personally think it's because they're being overcoached. I don't know exactly what I mean by that, which is a weird thing to say out loud, but I feel like it's one of these ones where is Russell Martin being a bit too clever? I can imagine he's doing a lot of analysis and pre-game stuff, post-game stuff, and at a point it's just going to become information overload. Again, this is just how it looks to me, and the best example was that game that me and you were at against Alloa, where Mikey Moore started really well, was all over the place, very busy, and he just kept getting shouted at by Russell Martin to stay wide, and do this, do that. And it's as if he then started doubting himself. And that's one small example of one player in one game making his debut. Right, he might have been doing the wrong thing, obviously. But just from that point, I've thought, well, Ant-Man doesn't seem to be playing naturally in the last few games. He just seems to be faces man up. I need to get to the byline. I've got no other option. And there was a shot very early today of his left side where he cut inside. That's the first I can remember him doing that since his debut, where he would just drive at people. And then obviously mentioned Aarons. The midfield doesn't really know what it's doing. I just feel like there's too many guys in this team that just don't know where they should be, where they should be trying to play the ball, where they should be receiving the ball. Should I be closer to you as my winger? Should you be here? Like, there's just so much going on. It seems like no one's playing naturally. And Russell Martin said it. He said people are playing with fear and they're very, very rigid, anxious. For me, that only comes when you're not playing your natural game. Because really, like, if you break it all down, we have 11 players, all of which would get in the St Mirren team, all of which would get in the Dundee team, all would get in the Motherwell team. Very few of those players, no disrespect, would get into a Rangers team, albeit they probably would right now, the way it looks. But we should just be able to control games, create chances. And that's the thing. If we'd picked up 3 draws in these opening games and every goalie had a world-class game, we'd missed chance after chance, they'd scored like worldies on our end, you would think, fair enough, rotten luck here. But as Craig said, you're seeing something, you're getting sort of an inkling of what Russell Martin wants to see. But we're hanging on in games. Like, as I say, we could have had a couple of goals down at half-time. Yes, we'd rally at the end, but even then, that header, Goggins, right at the death, could have easily gone in, and you're losing that game. The same way at Dundee, we scored a penalty, and they got and get a corner, and probably should score. Like, we are lucky to have 3 points, and for me, I don't understand as a fan trying to analyse things, trying to work out what we're trying to do. And if I'm thinking that, I can't help but think the players are thinking, what are we supposed to do here? What are we trying to do? Because it just seems so basic and pass in these areas that aren't hurting teams. And that's like, what was it, 70% possession today? Yet they have more shots, they have more corners, they have more chances. Like,
we're just not doing anything with the possession. We're just not doing anything with it. There's so much. We were told that, yes, okay, some of Russell Martin's some of the passes in Russell Martin's systems might look pointless, but they're moving the opposition around, and they're trying to find the space. That's not what's happening. That's not, and I feel like the players are losing possession on really simple passes, on really straightforward things. At least in the early games, like the games Panathinaikos, they were playing risky passes that you're like, oof, that's brave. But if that's the way we're going to go, then eventually that will start.
Beating a press. Like if you've got guys coming on to your defence and you pass round them, yes, we're all thinking, oh God, I can't watch that. That was nearly, they were one-on-one if they'd won that. But you beat the press and suddenly you've got overloads here, you've got space open up here. Whereas today, St Mirren just put 2 guys on Gassama. I will continue to say Gassama, by the way, as much as tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah.
They put 2 guys on him, and you think, well, now what? Like, what we're going to do? Because that stops Gassama's threat. McComa put in one good cross that Cameron should have scored in the first half, but that was the only chance he got to break free because they were just doubling up on that side. There is nothing centrally. Ant-Man, he's trying, of course he is, but he's very one-sided. So he's always going to go down the line the majority of the time. It's very flat, and we're playing without a striker in most of the game today. So again, that just helps the centre-backs who are happy to just get a foot in, get a head on the ball, and nothing surprised any point in that game today until we'd scored. That was the most surprising thing, which is insane.
Craig, one of the bigger issues, I guess, is that we're not any threat going forward whatsoever. Zero threat. We don't even look like scoring for full halves of football, which is just it's bad in Europe, but it's inexplicable in domestic football. How do we solve that issue? I mean, it's clear. I mean, to be fair to Russell Martin, I think it's clear that he's trying to work with a bad hand when it comes to the number 9. Like, I don't think any of them are players that he wants to be there. I think he's trying to back them publicly and give them the confidence that he's behind them. Maybe not so much Hamza Igamane, and we'll come on to that in a little bit. But I don't think Danilo's his kind of player. I don't think Danilo's good enough to play. To play the amount of times the ball bounced off him today, the amount of times that he was just non-existent in that second half. You then got Dessers, who has his faults, I think is probably the kind way to put it, but was previously finding the back of net, but also injured and, going by Russell Martin's comments after the game, keen to leave. You then got today, where we started without a recognised striker, Del Asgard up there, and that didn't work either. How do we get round that? Is it a player's fault? Is it a system fault? Is it a quality thing? We don't seem to be giving service to the strikers, and that's, to me, seems part of the problem. But also the quality of the strikers, I think, is an issue as well.
Yeah, I think the first point I'll make is that I didn't expect the transfer window to be perfect. I didn't expect the squad to be sorted by the time it ended. But we're coming into a game just today where we've spent 20 million and you do not have a recognised striker on the pitch, and you've got a makeshift defence. That's not good enough. That is miles away than we should be, and that's with one known injury. We'll talk about Agaman, but Desser's been known injury at that. So you're playing with a striker. That, first of all, in terms of recruitment, is not good enough. I know these things take time, but that's not good enough to be going into these games with a striker. But I can't tell you it's a personnel thing, because at the start of the season we said, once he gets his wide players in, this will start to click. We'll start to see it as he gets 2 wide players in, he gets more attacking options, and the likes of Mikey Moore in there, and we're still not seeing anything close to clicking. So I can't turn around and say it's a personnel issue, because there's been 20 million spent in that squad, and they don't look as good. They don't look as good going forward as they were last year, and that's a very low bar that's set. So I think it's a system. I think we're too slow in getting the ball to the wide players.
Yep.
We don't attack with any urgency, and it just leaves us so easy to defend. So
is that the system thing, or is that a players thing? Because one of the biggest frustrations I have watching any Rangers game now is John Souttar on the ball, how slow he is, how long he takes to ponder what his pass is going to be. See, when he does that, looking out one way, just pass it straight to the right back, just hurry up and pass it straight to the right back, and he steps on the ball and he just slows it down even more, and he turns left, like it turns slower than an oil tanker, and it's just like, come on, you've got to hurry up, and the only way this will work is if it goes quickly, and it just isn't happening. And I think the way we play at the back is an issue, but I don't imagine Russell Martin saying, "Oh yeah, just take as much time as you want, and we'll just get it going. We'll get it going when you're ready," rather than that. And that then comes down to, was that a player and ability issue, rather than the system side of things?
I mean, the thing is, he spoke up. John Sutton said how he's one of the ones that's doing exactly what he asked him. Though he said, quite a few positive things about, that. It's when he puts a foot on the ball, waits for the striker to come, and then looks to play the pass. So I don't know. I'd imagine what Russell Martin has in his head is very different from what we're seeing on the pitch. But there's just been so few glimpses that I actually don't know. I don't know what this is meant to look like when it works, because it just looks like a system that maybe the only place it works is on a PowerPoint, and not in an actual pressurised game when you need players to do it at that level. That's the way it looks to me. Again, it might all click and it might all look great, but I just don't know what he's trying to do, and I don't think the players do either.
See, on that, just to jump in, see if it is, because I'm quite sort of same thinking, it is a player's fault for a lot of this, because they're just not good enough to do what Russell Martin's trying to do. But surely then as the manager, you think, okay, I'll somewhat pause my philosophy obsession here and think, okay, you can't do what I need you to do, so don't. Like, I know he's so hell-bent on playing his way, in a certain style, and that's probably a big reason why he came in. But, we've had 2 months now playing at competitive games and it isn't working. Do something else. I'm not saying go directly the opposite and just play long ball every 2 minutes, but at least open the door to have that as an option. Play long, play Gassam over the top when possible, go straight in the midfield to skip the defence, especially 1-0 down, you're still seeing these same sort of lazy, slow passes at the back. It's like, wake up. And that's why I'd want the players to take a bit more assertiveness in those moments and think, well, not go against the manager as such, but this isn't working what I've been doing here. Let me try and force it a little bit in certain parts, because, that's what, 9-10 competitive games roughly at this point. It's been the same thing in all bar one game at home in Europe. So, yeah, that's really frustrating me at this point.
Yeah, you think maybe there would be a way of, this is the way it's going to work season 1, when I'm still building towards it. This is how I'll be a wee bit dramatic. Yeah, and then next season it becomes more free flowing and it goes closer to what we're looking for. We're trying to go from, absolute no real style of play to, a Pep Guardiola type team, without the tools to do it in a short space of time, and it's just not working.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And I guess let's talk about Hamza Igamane then. As soon as I hit 60 minutes, I was waiting on Hamza Igamane coming off the bench. I think everyone probably was at that stage. I think then at that point they said, "Oh, Kieran Dowell stripped and ready to go," and I was like, "Oh God, here we go again." But it wasn't Kieran Dowell that came on in the end, to be fair. But Hamza Igamane, then he got to about 70 minutes, and he's like, he's still warming up, but Neil McCann's like he's basically just standing there, not doing very much. After the game, Russell Martin came out and said that Hamza Igamane said he was injured. Was it tweaked his quad or something like that, or injured his quad while he was warming up? I think we're all sceptical of that. I think it's probably fair to say. What do you? There's a few things to this. Firstly, what do you make of that from Hamza Igamane? Secondly, what do you think of Russell Martin coming out and saying it publicly when we're trying to get maximum value from it? And thirdly, where does it leave us? I'll come to you first of all with that. I'll come to you first of all with the first question. Hamza Igamane, what did you make of that?
Pathetic from him, to be honest. Again, like you in the moment, I'm thinking, where is Igamane? Even when Danilo came on, I'm thinking, where is Igamane? Because I wanted him to start, let alone coming on at half time or an hour. But yeah, it's the fact he's had a bid for him rejected, obviously, this week. He's clearly just chucked it, for want of a better word. Even if you've got a slightly sore quad, you could have pulled that in the warm-up, obviously, but I've watched Hamza Igamane warm up plenty of times at Ibrox. He's not pulling anything. He just saunters about, shooting and hitting the ball here and there. it's really, really frustrating that we're relying on a guy who is clearly halfway out the door. And that, for me, is just something the board should have fixed, or, your Dan Puddies and Kevin Taylors should have fixed a month ago, 6 weeks ago. Like, we could have told you at the end of last season, he's probably moving on. Yes, you can't make bids happen. You can't force teams to bid for him. Every transfer these days is moving parts and somebody has to sell to then buy. Of course it is, but we should have that contingency plan knowing that he's probably going to leave at some point this summer, rather than looking at a bench and going, well, if it's not Agaman coming on, it's Dowell or someone. It's not a formidable striker. You think, okay, Agaman's not playing, but at least we've got X kind of thing, because it's just took one injury to Dessers and we're relying on guys that we know aren't good enough. And yes, Agaman might have been good enough, but if his heart's not in it, kind of same way as Morelos was at times, you need him fully focused, fully on point, and he seems to have come back this summer unfit, heavier than he should have been. We never really found out what that injury was that he even had before, whether that was something, fitness-wise, or an actual injury either. So his head's not been in it. And I think that's been quite evident, like, from the small appearances he's made, especially when he came on the other night against Bruges and he's trying the nutmeg, he's trying to be flaring. Like, this is not the time or place for that. And then, today I do feel bad for Russell Martin in that sense, because he's obviously turned to him to try and get some help, bring on, like, our main striker, really, and he's got a bit of a sore leg. It's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. It's very much a player having the power at this point, and it's something you see more and more in football. And I saw a few comments there just saying not to sell him and let him sit there. We can't afford to do that. If we've got a guy who you're getting, you're hoping 10, 15 million for, we need to bank on that money and get him out ASAP, because this isn't sustainable. And again, this is the kind of negative for me and Russell Martin, because I think he had to say it, because otherwise we're sitting in this podcast going, why is Hamza not coming on? What is going on there? That's the big outrage. So he had to say it, but it probably just chinks away his value a little bit, not only from that mentality side of things and attitude problem that he now has appeared to have, but if he is injured, like, less than an extra million or two, that could drop off his value. So very much lose-lose for Russell Martin. I do feel for him on this specific issue, but I can't help but think that's kind of pathetic from Agaman.
Yeah, I think from Hamza Igamane, you kind of want the Cyril Dessers attitude, don't you? Whenever you're a club, you just maintain professionalism. Fair enough if you do want to move on to something new, have those conversations behind the scenes, but stay professional, stay that way. Hamza Igamane, I think you can tell by how he came back in the summer that he had no intention of playing for us for any length of time. But what I don't get is, if you want that move to a different club, you don't come back 2.5 stone overweight. You don't come back unfit. You don't come back unwilling to play or a bit lazy in terms of how you're training and when you turn up and all that sort of stuff. I think all of that is on Hamza Igamane. I don't think that's on Rangers. I think, fair enough, if you want to, as I said, if you want to leave and do that, then everyone thought he was going to leave this summer anyway, just to get your agent to get the right bid, and then we'll let you go. We're not going to be difficult to deal with, but I think it's very...
Sorry to interrupt. I saw Kieran's comment and a couple others saying the same. That maybe he is injured, maybe he has got a sore leg. Right, that's obviously fair. But if you do, you need to make a coach or Russell Martin aware of that prior to them having to ask you to come on. Like, that should be at half time going, listen, I'm feeling something here. Sorry, but I don't think I can make it on, because then Russell Martin can plan for that. Then the coaching staff can say, okay, we've not got him, let's do this. Whereas it sounds to me like Russell Martin has simply turned to say, right, get yourself formed up, I'm putting you on. And it's then, nah. It's very much, it's like Tevez done it, probably for Man City, like 10 years ago or something. It just has that same sort of vibe to it of, I just don't want to come on. Oh, my leg's sore. It's just furious with it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. Craig, what did you make of Russell Martin coming out and, I guess, confronting it? I think I agree with Ian in terms of he had to do it, because otherwise we'd be sitting here going, we're 1-0 down and he's not put Hamza Igamane on at any point. And I think even when he put Finlay Curtis on, I was like, that's a bit of a strange one. Why is Igamane not coming on at that stage? But what did you make of that, and what do you make of what happens next?
I think he had to today, right? When you've not brought him in and that's happened in the second half, you have to sort of explain it. I think my issue is more that should be sorted away from a match day squad if his attitude's not right. I think they've obviously had problems with his attitude. They covered it up with the visa. I'm not saying they definitely covered it up with the visa stuff early in the year, right? But it all sounds a bit suspicious. He comes back late for pre-season due to visa issues. He's got an injury. We're all reading between the lines there on that side. If he wasn't wanting to be in the squad, you'd imagine you have a conversation this week, and if his head's not right, then you say to him, look, we'll then say you're injured, we'll leave you at the squad, we'll put somebody else in. That saves space for everybody. But again, I'm second guessing because Russell Martin might have had no idea that was the case, and it might have just been he's just turned around and he's just said, no, I'm not doing it. So, it's hard without all the facts, but I just feel as if this sort of stuff should be done out with the match day squad the best you can. And if his attitude is not 100%, he shouldn't be anywhere near that squad. Same with getting injury in the warm up. I'm not buying it. As Ian said, the warm up, especially if you're a sub, it's not the most, it's not the most rigorous warm up you do. It's kind of a loosener, get going. And if you feel something at that stage, you can come out the squad. There's usually a spare man. I think they still do that, where there's a spare man in the squad. Where you can bring someone else onto the bench. So, yeah, the main one to blame out of this is Agaman for his attitude, but I don't think the club's handled it all particularly well. And now it's came to a stage where everybody knows he wants away. It's kind of all done in public, and it probably pushes his value down, which is not ideal for anyone. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Ian, from a striker perspective, we've all been desperate for a new striker to come in. We're all, I think, in agreement with Russell Martin in terms of not having any belief in the strikers that are there. I think some people did have belief in Hamza Igamane, and that's probably died a death after today's shenanigans. What do you make of the links to Miovski that we've seen over the last couple of days? Suggests it's a loan deal with an obligation to buy. I think Spanish media said that Miovski wasn't willing to just move on a loan with no obligation to buy, so it was either a permanent transfer or it included that clause. What do you make of that deal, and is he the kind of player that can make the difference for us?
I definitely don't hate it. It ticks a lot of boxes, the basic stuff. Like, he knows the league, he's performed well in the league. He has a good player, obviously. Not quite worked out at Girona, but it's a hard league to play in. I don't think he was ever the main man there really as well, so he's playing off the bench a lot of the time. So, he's definitely decent. I wouldn't be overexcited by it for some reason. I don't know what I'm expecting to come in, but I feel like the striker that comes in, I want him to be a kind of powerful, hold the ball up, bring people into play. I don't quite know if that's Miovski's game. I think he's more just a kind of finisher. So I think if he's coming in to maybe let a Dessers go, that makes sense. A guy that just stays between the posts, gets the ball, scores, that should be fine. I'd still want a more rounded centre forward in there. And that's maybe doing him a bit of a discredit. I've not seen him very much since he left Aberdeen, and he was playing in quite poor Aberdeen teams as well, getting a lot of good goals. So, fair play there. But I don't know, it's just not quite what I wanted in my spine of my team. I know we've talked about this a lot in this podcast about, centre back, centre mid, striker have to be this powerful, attitudes right, aggressive type players in there. I don't quite know if he fits that mould, but he's definitely not a bad player, and he's probably better than any of the three options we've got up there just now. Like, if you're asking me if I want Danilo starting games or Miovski, it's Miovski all day. Probably same with Dessers, because I'm fed up with Dessers, as I'm sure a lot of us are. And then after today, I'm quite happy for Agaman to not kick a ball for us again. So we definitely need one or two in there. I would just hope this is the sort of one of another striker that's coming in, but it's obviously just going to depend on who's going the other way. But it does seem pretty close. It got very, very loud rumour-wise yesterday. It wasn't just the one or two tweets. It was quite... It seemed
got very reputable sources as well, I think, yesterday as well, which I think was it wasn't just the Spanish press, and they can tend to speculate to just fill column inches and stuff like that, but it was coming from, it's been ratified by Scottish journalists as well, which I think suggests there really is something in it. But how important is it that that's done as soon as possible? Ian, I get the impression we'll probably wait until someone's pretty much out the door, if not already out the door, but how important is it that that's done ASAP?
That probably was the case, but I don't know if maybe even part of Russell Martin's thinking here of sort of out in Igaman is maybe a little eye to your Kevin Thelwell's and the board of saying what I've got isn't good enough. Likewise, not starting Danilo because Danilo's not been great, and I think he would have got eaten alive at times in that game today, especially up against like Gogic and the centre backs they've got. But to not even start a striker, just for me in any sort of any team I've seen do that over the years, it's always a statement from the manager of saying my striker or the strikers I've got here aren't what I need. I need something else. So I think this one could happen very quickly, and it might not be we need X to leave before Y comes in kind of thing. Especially if Dessler's injury is one of these ones that's going to keep rumbling on. Like he was close to Bruges, he was then close to being this squad. Didn't see him at all. He's then probably not going to feature on Wednesday night. So actually down to one striker that you've just outed and one you've just dropped from a starting 11. So we need this one done very quickly in my eyes. At least this one is along the road. It's not starting from scratch because we've seen how long we take for deals sometimes. So hopefully this one does get confirmed the next 24 hours or so. It'd be a big boost for me.
Yeah, Craig, are you expecting a striker to come in this week, or do you reckon it'll just be I've heard Russell Martin say today it'll be a big 10 days, which suggests that maybe it won't be ahead of the Old Firm game next week, but it'll be before the end of the window. What are your hopes, and then what are your expectations?
I think it will happen before the Old Firm game. I think if the Miovski one's happening, I think it'll be the next few days. It hopefully gets concluded, which is one I'm quite excited about, to be honest with you. I think he's a good sign if we get that one over the line. But we badly need it before the Old Firm game. I can't wait any longer. It would be desperate. If we go into that Old Firm game with maybe Dessler's there, depending on what his injury's like, what his situation is. If not, we're looking at Danilo or like we've done today, and just not playing a recognised striker. It cannot happen. This needs done in the next few days. So I'd expect at least one striker in the next few days, and hopefully one out.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, and it'll be interesting to see who that is and how that looks, and maybe it gives us a bit of a different dimension as we go into next week's game. Iain, I'll start with you with this one. The big talking point is obviously, should Russell Martin stay or should Russell Martin be sacked? Can't believe we're here already, but I also think it's partially the result of starting poorly, but it's also everyone's fed up after kind of 14 years of this every year. So I think that's where everyone is just fed up, and that's not necessarily Russell Martin's fault. And I think I'm a bit sympathetic around that, because it's not, I guess it's partially his fault as a player, but it's not his fault when he was as manager. What do you stand on Russell Martin, and should he still be Rangers manager, or do you feel like he should be sacked?
Just laughing when the comments say they should be sacked and sent to prison. With some bunch of I said it before we went live that I don't think he should be sacked just yet, and I get why people want him to be sacked. I'm seeing the same things. I'm not getting anything new game to game, but I like the signings we've brought in. I think they make sense. It just has to click. And don't get me wrong, I've watched today going, in the moment of the game, I thought he can't continue, this can't go on, but a few hours pass, you chill, you kind of start getting your head together. But for me, it just has to be given some proper chance, because I was quite keen on Russell Martin coming in, probably in the minority there, so I understand the noise. I realise people are sort of fed up, like you say, of the last 10, 12, 14 years, whatever it's been. I see the red flags totally, but I still think win the Old Firm game. Massive ask, I get that. Win the Old Firm game, you're 3 points behind, you're in Europa League, transfer window will be closing, you've got your finished squad, it's then and onwards. I'd want Russell Martin to be judged, and maybe that has been a bit generous. Like I was saying, facts are facts. We've got 3 points in 3 games, we've not scored a goal from open play, the defence is shambolic, but I think Russell Martin has a lot of excuses for all these factors just now, whether it's the playing squad, it's the schedule we've had. There's a few things in there that you can point to and say it's not working just yet, but this, that. And again, like I say, that is being generous, but I think he has enough. I was going to say enough credit. He has no credit, but I think we need to give him the chance to build up some credit, because if you win that Old Firm game, things change. If you lose that game and lose it badly, I think it'll be a massive way back for him. I thought it was quite cheeky today of Steven Gerrard posts of his son in a Rangers top. Could be innocent enough, I get that, but that noise is going to continue. It's a guy sitting there doing nothing that we all fell in love with. So there's an easy backup there, which I don't think is helping Russell Martin in any way. But I wouldn't pull the trigger just yet, albeit judging by the comments, Twitter, what you're starting to hear at games, it's not just that online majority. People are fed up, and I totally understand why. It's just personally, I wouldn't quite go there just yet.
Yeah, I'm probably in the minority, and I would hate Steven Gerrard to come back, to be honest. I think people forget that what those first 2 seasons under him were like, and if it wasn't for COVID, I think he would have been gone after that Tynecastle game, to be honest, because we all hated that as well, didn't we? We can't sugarcoat that in any way. Craig, Russell Martin in, Russell Martin out.
I hate to say it because I don't want anybody to be sacked. I don't think that's a positive thing for the club, but I just can't see where this is going. Like, I'm watching this and all it's going is with blind faith. Someone telling you it's going to get better. I just don't see how this system works. I don't see how we progress under him. And I think he's making it even worse for himself with some of the post-match comments, which I think totally just
has he been too honest
even
in
more.
Post-match comments? Or?
No, I think he's just seeming a bit all over the place, to be honest with you. I mean, the Motherwell game, he just went for the players publicly, and everyone thought, well, that's an interesting approach. And then since then, it's been the kind of playing down the significance of bad results. I mean, today he said it wasn't the end of the world. I know he's just giving journalists bait with stuff like this. No, and I think the amount of times he says the word learning in every interview is really winding me up, because we don't need a tactical guru in months to teach this team how to beat, Motherwell, Dundee, and St Mirren. That should be, that he should more than enough to get these results, and it can't just be just brushing it off. Oh, it's not the end of the world, So I think, and things saying like we won't concede these goals again. Well, how? How are you going to change these things? And saying, judge me by May. He's kicked things further down the line. He says the team will look different in 10 days. So now it's down to the transfer window. I just think all the excuses are coming out. And I just think it all seems a bit all over the place. We knew that dressing room had mentality issues and it needed a strong manager to come in and take control. And I just don't know if he's that. I think too many players are not buying into it. He's a bit all over the place. And I think the pressure's getting to him already. So again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope it all clicks into place. I hope we go and beat Celtic and it eases the pressure and we can go on a run. But right now, if you're asking me, I think it's a matter of time rather than anything, which is a depressing thought, but I've got to be completely honest.
Yeah, Craig, is it? Where do you stand on there's so much at the club that's trying to be changed at the moment. There's so much in terms of personnel. We spoke beforehand around effectively we're looking for 15 players out, 15 players in for them all to be gelled and playing good football in the space of like 3 weeks. Yeah. And then also the fact around he's talking about a culture and a mentality shift. I think we're seeing that mentality come through in some of these games. I mean, the dressing room we've known for much longer than Russell Martin's been here. We've known that the dressing room is toxic. We're seeing that with Hamza Igamane's behaviour. We've got Oscar Cortez and Barami on Instagram posting stuff like that the players are in that dressing room largely that the ones that have been existing players in there are selfish, and they're
insane. Like someone who's dropped the performances of an Oscar Cortez who's been injured here for 18 months plus at this point, been injured most of that. The way he played against Alloa and he's putting up little sly digs on Instagram stories. That's why I don't think all this blame can go to Russell Martin, and he's head of the table. He's the main man here. He's going to take that flack, obviously, but you've got guys like that, guys like Bayrami, who's barely kicked a ball since he came here. Yes, he could have played a little bit more here and there, but the nerve of these guys, like the attitude is just utterly insane to me, and there's so much of a cesspit of this squad that I would just love to just rip it up, start again. I know we can't do that. No one's ever going to be able to, but there's really a lot of players in this squad I just do not like, which is really sad to say as a football fan. You don't like players at your club, but the egos are insane.
Yeah, I think that's the case. But I mean, is it we know that the dressing room's toxic. The culture has to change. That's not something that changes quickly in any place, any workplace you're in, any anywhere like that, especially when, I guess, in football there's more of that team aspect of it, and that they're all together and they're all fighting for each other, and so that kind of harvests itself very quickly. If it's bad, it's hard to change. Does that impact your view of whether he should have the time to do that or to change, or if is it just it's too far and too much already?
I mean, I said it before. I didn't expect this to be perfect to start. I knew it was going to take a bit of time, but you need to see some signs that it's going in the right direction. And that's my thing. I don't really see what those signs are. I haven't spoke to anyone who's gave me any evidence to say this is a positive. This is where he's going to go. Even when you look back at his time at Southampton, there's not a lot of Southampton fans that give you reason that it will get better. So I think that's my main issue. And the full thing of the culture and mentality change, yes, that doesn't happen overnight. But I mean, is the culture really improving if you're talking about learning and how it's not that bad that big a deal if you drew your first 3 games? That's not the culture I want implemented. I want a culture that the one he was pretty much talking about after the Motherwell game, where it's not good enough. It's the effort levels need to go up, the standards need to be driven. I just don't see that. So if he's trying to change the culture, I think the last few games haven't given me any confidence that that's what's happening.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I'm more towards Ian's side, to be honest, in terms of, I think, not quite at he should be sacked yet. I think he really needs a win in the Old Firm game next Sunday to be able to have any chance. I think, to be honest, I think if he's able to get out of that and he's 3 points behind Celtic going into the international break, that's almost manageable. I think gives that extra time to do things, maybe alleviates the pressure a little bit. I think if he loses that, I don't see how already this early on, I don't see how it recovers, to be honest. But Ian, our next run of games, albeit there's an international break in between them, but Bruges away, Celtic at home, Hearts at home, Hibs at home in the Premier Sports Cup, and then Livingston away. How are you feeling about those?
There was a comment 5 minutes ago that said Ian is a good buzz, simply depressed. See, by the time those games are done, I will be chucking this podcast. Like if this continues the way we play against those teams, that is tough. And this is what I mean. That why I would give him some time, because if you get through that run, get a few good wins in. I don't want to say all wins in there because that's delusional maybe how it looks just now. But if you win those games, suddenly everything's changed. Like you said, the Old Firm game is massive because not only do we need that win as fans to try and get on board and get some positivity going, like the players, yes, I've just talked about how some of them will hopefully move on and are out the door by then, but the ones that stick around need that win, especially some of the newer guys that have come in. Your Gassama, your Ant-Mans, Asgard, Jigga. These guys have never played an Old Firm game before. They need to start that sort of fixture well, because we saw for so many years guys have come in, sort of played with guys who have been scarred from that game, and that scarring just sort of spreads throughout the rest of the new guys. So if they can come in, get a win, see a good win in that game, for me it just changes everything. Like you say, 3 points behind, certainly an amount of points that we could challenge with going forward, and everything will just be settling down, transfer window wise and squad wise. This time next week, we could be sitting here a much more positive line of thought. I'm not saying I expect that. I don't think we're going to that game as favourites at all. But we do seem to turn up in Old Firm games. If last season's end to go by, it's just a massive chance for Russell Martin to just get people back on side, because, like I said, I went into that game all morning thinking I'm not excited for this game to start. I feel like I know what's coming, and then I got no surprises. I can't be going into games like that going forward. I have to have that buzz. We have to have that excitement, and a win Old Firm game at least starts that process.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Craig, this goes one of two ways, really, doesn't it? Either becomes all rosy in the garden, I guess. You start to go on a wee bit of a run. You get through to the semi-finals of the Premier Sports Cup, and then you're saying, right, we've got a wee bit of time and we're kind of still meeting expectations. Or you lose the Old Firm game, you get knocked out of the Premier Sports Cup, and your season is 2/3 over before it's even mid-September. I mean, it feels like a really precarious position at the moment.
Yeah, you're right. If he gets through, if he wins Old Firm, listen, it just lifts that pressure and just gives him a little bit more time. Then he goes and beats Hibs, as you said, gets into semi-final. We start to breathe a wee bit and go, right, give it a bit of time, give it a few months, see how it's settling down, see how it goes from now until Christmas. If he loses either of those, I mean, if he loses the Old Firm game and we go into a press conference, he's talking about learning and how proud he is of the team, I think that is that. I think always would be ready to chuck it after that. So it's massive for him. It's make or break. We said that before today, and he's went and drawn. There's, for a lot of fans, they're already at the, the patience has ran out. Old Firm game is crucial, and then the Hibs game, knockout game. You cannot be going to a cup competition, so you need to go on a wee run after this.
Yeah, Ian, devil's advocate time here. A comment from Tommy's Cardigan says, wild statement, but if the league is over, you'd be almost as well giving him more time. What do you make of that?
The league's not over. I say that's like smiling at myself, but we came back from loss. If we win that Old Firm game, which I've now said maybe 6 times, it's 3 points. 3 points for me has always been that sort of golden amount where it can change in a weekend kind of thing, and goal difference wise is maybe another point there. But it's when you're talking you're 5, 6, 7 points behind, and you need a couple of slip ups from them, and he does to kind of keep on their tails. That's where I don't think we would do well. But you never know what can happen in one game. I don't think they're quite the animal they have been over the years, albeit they might sign players and stuff, but we just need to get ourselves sorted. We need to start seeing something. And, Russell Martin has been very vocal. It'll take a couple of months till things click. It's not quite the Phil Clement, Judge Me October, November. It's not quite there yet, but it's sort of saying that in a roundabout way. I'm trying to give him time for my own sanity more than anything. And again, I'll go right back to it. 3 points if you win next Sunday. That has to be the tagline plastered all over the dressing room, the training pitch this week. Win that Old Firm game, we're back on track somewhat, and go from there. I mean, for all we know, we could win 3-0 on Wednesday, qualify for Champions League, beat Celtic, beat Hibs. This could be fine. I would faint with joy if that happened, obviously. But yeah, we can't chuck it just yet. Let's just pray to God we get some good signings this week, and this time next week we're all loving life again.
Yeah, in my head I've just completely disregarded Wednesday night, to be honest. I've not even considered that as an option. I've not even considered that as an option of us winning even by a 2-goal margin to take it into extra time. Craig, how are you feeling heading into this next week?
As you said, the Bruges game, I'm the same. I've almost written it off. Even if we scored 2, there is no way that team's keeping a clean sheet in Bruges. So I've pretty much written that off. It is what it is. We'll be in the Europa League. I'm not too gutted at that because I think that's our level. The weekend, I'm not confident right now. I know come closer to Old Firm, you'll get a bit excited for it. I'll probably come around Ian's way of thinking, let's just get the result, and then things are a wee bit more positive. So we do need signings in. I know Celtic will strengthen as well. You'd imagine they'll bring in 1 or 2, but we need to strengthen. And I think the good thing is, the later we bring in players, the less time they've got to get coached. So there's a good chance they'll hit the ground running because they'll not have enough instruction yet. It's 2 or 3 weeks down the line when they get 56, PowerPoint slides thrown in their face telling them what to do. That's probably when they'll lose it a wee bit. But no, hopefully a couple of signings in and we're feeling a bit better about the Old Firm game.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Not so much optimism, I think, heading into this next 7 days. Probably quite a bit of trepidation, actually. But thank you very much, everyone, for watching us. We're just approaching the hour mark. If you've not subscribed to the tr.ee YouTube channel, please make sure you do. It helps us massively and means you won't miss out on any of the content we've got coming up as well. Plenty coming up, build up to the Bruges game on Tuesday, live from 7:30 p.m. We'll have the fallout on Thursday, live at 7:30 p.m. as well, and then back next Sunday after the Old Firm game, likely to be a post-match reaction rather than the later one, but we'll keep you updated as we move through the week on that one. But thank you very much to Iain and Craig for joining us. Thank you very much to everyone for watching and listening. Until next time, goodbye.